It's that time of the week. It's a locked on crossover, locked on UCF, locked on Oklahoma State. Who do we watch and what went wrong for both Oklahoma and UCF this season? Start the show.
You are Locked On College Crossover, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome on in to Locked On UCF and Locked On Oklahoma State. It's a Locked On crossover. I'm your host, Mike G. Thank you so much for making Locked On your first listen of every single day. Turn us up, turn us on, we'll turn it out. I'm here with my good friend Cody from Locked On Oklahoma State to talk a little Oklahoma State and UCF football here on today's show. We're going to talk about what went wrong for Oklahoma State, a plight that UCF fans can identify with. We're going to talk about players to watch here. Cody's going to educate us on who to watch on the Oklahoma State side headed into this matchup. And then we're going to get some predictions to close the show. But Cody, let's start at the top here, man. What went wrong for Oklahoma State this year? I want to remind everybody, Oklahoma State in our Locked On internal poll got voted 12th in the preseason, UCF 15th. This might be a battle for worst team in the conference. I'm a little bit of a homer, but right now I think that's Oklahoma State. If you're UCF and you lose this game, by the laws of nature, you are the worst team in the conference. But talk to me about this. You fired Mike Gundy, and you've got to get through the end of the season and find a path forward. Characterize for our listeners what went wrong with Oklahoma State this year.
It might be easier to figure out the things that went right for Oklahoma State because there's not very many. I think you can easily just point to the fact that Mike Gundy lost track of the NIL, and he admitted that he thought it would kind of go away and this money transactional era wouldn't last. So that put Oklahoma State behind the 8 ball. And then we finally did come up with a significant number of NIL for this season, but we obviously spent it on the wrong players. People give Texas Tech a hard time for buying a roster. I don't think that necessarily matters because everybody to some degree is going to be buying portions of the roster. It's about getting the right guys. Oklahoma State spent anywhere from 11 to 14 mil on this roster, and we just identified the wrong talent. So the evaluations of the individuals we needed to bring in were very faulty, which is why Mike Gundy is gone. The defensive coordinator's gone. The safeties coach is gone, all in the middle of the season. We are the basement team. Okay, we proudly hold that spot at the very bottom, but there's still a couple games left for us to try to drag somebody down with us, and maybe UCF is going to be the victim that allows us to kind of drag them down to the bottom of the basement with us.
Yeah, it's going to be, I think, a more fun game than a lot of people are expecting here. Now, you've potentially got a freshman quarterback that's starting this game here, and looking at the numbers, maybe a little bit of a rough go for him so far here, but Oklahoma State, the only winless team in conference in the Big 12 this year. A lot of people feel like this game doesn't mean anything, but these players, Cody, like I know because we both talk to players, they are still playing for pride, and this matters. UCF lost their first space game ever this year, and that was a game they had never lost. Scott Frost comes back, and unfortunately, he's got that on his record, the coach who lost the first space game. How does Oklahoma look at this game in a way that look at this game in a way that motivates you to go out and maybe beat some butt on the road?
I think you look directly to the last 2 games. You mentioned Zane Flores starting the season. It was very, very rough after the Haas Haney injury, but the last 2 performances have been fairly decent. Zane Flores put up over 235 yards against Kansas, 233 yards again against Kansas State. The turnovers against Kansas State were obviously problematic, but part of that was us trying to get a little bit too cute, right? We tried to do some double reverse passes with the running backs, and you have to do some of that whenever you don't have offensive creativity. But at the same point in time, there is cause for excitement. The front 7 has been really good. We went from 5.7 yards per carry allowance down to 2.7 yards per carry, and the last 2 games have been even better. The front 7 of Oklahoma State has done enough to give us some hope. The offensive side of the ball obviously is lacking, but Zane Flores does seem to be getting better. And you mentioned it. Some of these players are still playing for something. A decent number of these guys are playing for their audition to come back, right? They want to be part of Oklahoma State's resurgence under a new coaching staff. Some individuals are putting something on tape to go elsewhere, but there are still a decent number of dudes that are playing for something. And I will leave you with this. One of the things that was mentioned in the broadcast in this previous game against Kansas State is the players had like a players meeting, and they dictated who was in and who was out. And if you had foot half, if you had 1 foot half out, then you were gone. And so you did see a decent number of players that were supposed to be playing. They didn't even suit up. We had a few guys that were late to the morning walkthrough. They were told just basically go home. We don't need you here. We don't need you on the sidelines. So you're seeing it that the team is identifying the guys who still give a crap and the guys who don't. And if you don't still give a crap, we don't want you on the football field. And you know that only works if it comes directly from the players. Now, why it took this late in the season for the players to decide this, I don't know. But it does still matter for these guys, and I think that that is an easy indication of that. There's still a lot of buy-in. We just have to end the season on a high note. We need AW. We haven't won a conference game since 2023, Mike.
Let me tell you this. I cover multiple teams, and I've sat down with a lot of head coaches for one-on-one interviews, and I can tell you this. Every coach has told me that player-led teams are the best-led teams. They're the best teams. They are where you have leaders step up and they can speak to their peers in a way that the coaches maybe can't. So there's a role there. I like that. I like to hear that for these players that they kind of took, took the reins there and said, we're not going out like punks here. You've lost 9 straight games. You won your opener and then lost 9 straight headed into this one. You got 2 conference games left at UCF and then home versus Iowa State. I just think, it's easy to write off games like this, but when you fire a coach midseason, it seems to be a lot of that going on around college football right now.
Yeah, it's the trend.
Yeah, you've got to lay a good foundation for the next year. And, if you're Oklahoma State's administration, it's going to be tough, maybe even holding the better players in after their coach got fired midseason. And the next guy you bring in might not be a good fit for those guys. So winning these last 2, I think definitely matters both for UCF and for Oklahoma State. Now on the UCF side, this team has just gone as quarterback has gone. Both Cam Fancher, who won the job, but then got hurt a quarter and a half into the season. Taven Jackson, the transfer from Indiana, and took over Cody, and he kind of just held on to the job.
I was going to say, Taven, in the small sample size I've seen, does look like the more adequate option of the team.
Yeah, look, man, he's got the bigger sample size, but UCF has won the games they absolutely should have won, and they've lost every game that was either on the fence or where the team was better than them. So in this case, I think this is one of those games for UCF, especially by record, where you're going to be expected to win this game. And sometimes that's the trap.
Well, we have no business winning this game, but we are playing better. It is more of a player-led roster at this point in time. And I also remind you, we have some redemption in the flipping bounce house, buddy, because the last time we were there, got off of dominating OU, we got dominated ourselves. We looked like a shell of a football team that had no ability, and then we somehow still ended up in the Big 12 title game against Texas. But that UCF left a very bad taste in our mouths, and we're kind of excited to go back to the bounce house, especially in this predicament, because we're not supposed to win. Just like we were not supposed to get absolutely housed last time we played you at the same facilities.
We talked about Zane Flores and Taven Jackson, but who are the other players to watch? We're going to, on the other side of the break, we're going to come back and we're going to talk about who fans should be paying attention to from Oklahoma State and UCF next, right here on Locked On UCF and Locked On Oklahoma State. It's a Locked On crossover. This episode of Locked On Crossover is brought to you by our friends at FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. The NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than with our friends at FanDuel. Even if you missed the start of the game or you want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from fourth quarter comebacks to who will score next. Plus, you can even combine your bets into a same-game parlay for a chance at an even bigger payout. It's my favorite thing to do. I have absolutely cashed some parlays here. I'm hoping to cash some this NBA season. Keeps every game exciting, especially when your team's making that late push. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers up to $300 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. That's right, you heard that. $300 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just download the FanDuel app today to get started. FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Let's jump back in here. Players to watch. Again, we mentioned the freshman Zane Flores at QB there. Some improvement over the last couple games, as you mentioned, for him. But in talking about what went wrong for Oklahoma State, would you say that like maybe quarterback getting hurt was where it all started and then maybe went downhill from there?
100%. It was very visible from the first game of the season that our offense was oriented around the escapability of Haas Haney. So if we had some deficiencies in the offensive line, which we knew that we did coming into the year, the objective for Haas Haney was to kind of avoid some of that. Obviously, when you lose Haas Haney and Zane Flores has to step up, it's a completely different system that Zane Flores is, designed to run. So it's taken a little bit of time for us to make that adjustment. And thankfully, our offensive line has gotten better throughout the course of the season. So if Haas Haney was still available, I do think that Oklahoma State fans saw enough of a glimpse from him to know that the season would have gone drastically different. But, in this wild, wacky world that we all live in, it's about the next man up. Oklahoma State was not prepared for that next man up, which is why we're in this fairly precarious situation we are in.
Yeah, look, if you don't have a quarterback in today's college football, you're screwed.
It's hard. Yep.
This is a quarterback's game. I've said it over and over again. The examples of teams that have average to below average quarterback play and are competing consistently are few and far between. I would say the greatest example we have in recent years might have been like Stetson Bennett's first year where they won the championship at Georgia. He had whole games where he threw the ball maybe 10 or 11, 12 times, and they won a championship in that year. But to go back to back, not only did he have to raise his game, I told Georgia fans this, and they jumped all over me on social media. I said, Stetson Bennett's got to be much better. Not only was he better, he made New York for the Heisman. So you have to have quarterback play, and everybody knows that 2021 Georgia defense probably one of the best that we've seen in college football. You're not going to have that if you're the average program, like an all-world defense. So you got to have quarterback play. UCF has had it in the bad, seemingly in the bad games, but the offensive line is absolutely where Oklahoma State has a chance to attack UCF. They've got some injuries down there. Very tragically, our offensive line coach died this season, Sean Clark. Rest in peace to him. We did a nice tribute to him on our channel. But it's a position group that struggled here. And even if you have a good quarterback, if you can't protect him, you're going to have a hard time. Do you think Oklahoma State is equipped to generate some pass rush here versus Taven Jackson in this matchup this weekend?
Again, the front seven has been the highlight of the season thus far. Whenever you have guys like Wendell Gregory, which is one of the tops in the Big 12 when it comes to tackles for loss, he's very capable of getting into the backfield. Again, going from 5.6 to 2.7 yards per carry defensively does give us a decent amount of hope. As it pertains to getting rushed, we have Deshaun Brown back. This will be his third game back healthy, starting defensive end. That should be huge for Oklahoma State. You've seen the UCLA transfers at Vinny Kafusi make a name for himself, especially recently down low. The linebacker core has been very impressive. You have the middle linebacker, Brian McCoy, who should be an NFL level dude. You have Brendan Rawls on the outside, who has the ability to cover the tight end, get to the flats, get up the seams, and also to provide a little bit of a containment, which I do think that Jackson is going to need to be somebody that we contain. We were able to contain Avery Johnson. We were able to contain Jalen Daniels. So I do feel like that this is a game that Oklahoma State has a chance in. And when you're talking about individual talent, I think number 8 in the Big 12 in rushing is Miles Montgomery. Right under him is our dude, Rodney Fields. And Rodney Fields has missed a decent portion of the season due to injury. So the yards that he's putting up, almost 600 some odd yards, it's on a very small sample size. So I think that he's going to have the capability to have a very nice game. And we're going to need that because we cannot allow Jaden Nixon to outrush Rodney Fields Jr. I can tell you, Jaden Nixon was one of those individuals that when he transferred, Oklahoma State fans were very, very sad to see him go because his family has a connection to Oklahoma State, right? So he has that legacy stuff that we didn't think would walk out the door. Thankfully, Rodney Fields Jr. has been a very, very good replacement for Jaden Nixon. But at the same point in time, I think Oklahoma State does have some guys defensively that can get it done. Wide receiver has been lacking this year. So it is going to come down to the front seven on the defense and the offensive line for Oklahoma State to open enough holes for Rodney Fields Jr.
Yeah, look, Jaden Nixon and Miles Montgomery have been a pretty good duo at times, very boom or bust here. So the yards per carry look great. Miles was out last week. He may be out again this week. So there may be an opportunity for Jaden Nixon. As we're recording this, the Big 12 availability report has not come out yet. Comes out every Wednesday at 10 p.m. So can't wait to check it back in with you online after we see who's officially in or out from this one. There have been some surprise names for UCF from week to week on that availability report where we pulled it up thinking one thing and then we're like, oh no, this is worse than we thought.
Well, and you guys we have a depleted roster for different reasons. Y'all's roster has been dealing with a lot of injuries as of late.
It has,
That's another reason why Oklahoma State fans feel like this could be a game where we sneak up and drag somebody down to the basement with us.
Yeah, stars are going to have to be are going to have to arise, I think, for Scott Frost over the last 2 games of this season here. What's on the line here for UCF is you lose this one and you're eliminated from bowl game contention with 1 game left. And let me tell you something. If you want to kill a fan base, kill hope. And it may not seem like a lot to a lot of fans, but getting that extra game matters. We've got a recruit. His name is Kane Archer. He's a QB. He's one of the best QBs in the country. He was the only 3-star to make Rivals all preseason, like All-American list this year out of high school. And this kid is good, like completing something crazy, like 80% of his passes in high school. He's a spectacular arm talent, and he's going to enroll early. We interviewed him on this channel. You want to get to a bowl game and you want to get him into bowl practices and get him in the field, and you want him to put pen to paper as fast as possible, I think, if you're UCF. So getting this extra game matters. But look, at the end of the day, there's going to be an out. There's going to be a winner and there's going to be a loser, Cody. Who's going to come out on the winning side? Who's going to come out on the losing side? I'm going to get a prediction from my good friend Cody from Locked On Oklahoma State here next, right after a quick word from our sponsors. This episode of Locked On UCF is brought to you by our friends at Game Time and Locked On Oklahoma State. It's a Locked On crossover, and Game Time is here for you when you want to get tickets to your favorite game. Maybe you want a ticket to the Oklahoma State UCF matchup this weekend. Well, Game Time potentially has you covered. That's why we use it here at Locked On and why you should too. It's the easiest way to score last-minute tickets at the best prices with no surprise fees, and what you see is what you get. Pull up the Game Time app, and in just a couple of taps, you can see the best deals, amazing deals. I'm talking about your favorite college games as low as $25. Game Time also has a feature called Zone Deals where you pick the section, Game Time picks the seats, and you save a bunch on your tickets. It's faster, it's cheaper, and it's less stressful than any other way you could buy tickets. Take the guesswork out of buying college tickets today with Game Time. Download the Game Time app and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, code LOCKEDONCollege for your first purchase. $20 off. Download Game Time today. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Game Time is there for you when you need tickets. Prediction time. I got to get you on the record. Who wins this and why? Before you go, I do want to point out the ESPN matchup predictor is giving UCF an 89.6% chance to win this game. They have been scary accurate predicting UCF games so far this season, but there's a 14.5 spread on this one. So it opened at 13.5, moved to 14.5. Oklahoma State getting 500 on the money line with our friends at FanDuel. What say you, Cody? I'll hold your feet to the fire here. Who wins this one and why?
I'm not going to pretend that Oklahoma State's going to sneak up and get this W. I do think UCF does get the win. However, I do think that it looks somewhat like Kansas State. We outrushed K-State. We had more receiving yards than K-State. We just couldn't score, right? So having a bunch of yards, getting a bunch of stops, it doesn't mean a whole lot if you can't score. That was Oklahoma State's issue. I unfortunately don't see that changing a whole lot in this ball game. I think Oklahoma State will be competitive. It'll be a close ball game. I do think that we keep it underneath the spread. But at the end of the day, I do think that UCF is probably a 10-point winner here. I think it'll be kind of a close game. maybe it'll be like a 10-21 style of game. I definitely see that as a plausible situation.
I'm going to go a different direction here. I think UCF wins, but I think this game is way more interesting than maybe some people are predicting. I think UCF wins this one 27-24. I'm taking the over on this one. I got a strange feeling this is going to be a wacky game. And like
Bro, if we score 24 points, I might fly to wherever you are and give you the biggest hug of all time.
A lot of defensive injuries for UCF here that might affect this one. Now, the defense has been one of the better ones in the Big 12 all season. And I'll tell you, when you look at UCF's schedule, some of the games that they've lost, even though, again, they're sub 500, Cody, you lost to Cincinnati 20-11. You held them to 20 points. You lost to Kansas 27-20. I think really Texas Tech was the only team that it really felt like blew out UCF, and we knew that was going to happen. It was like a 24-point spread on that game. But with all the injuries UCF had coming into that one, they didn't have a chance. This is going to be a weird one. Again, I think UCF pulls it out, but I think that Oklahoma State makes it interesting, and I would not be shocked to see this game go to overtime, no matter what the score is.
So, bro, I'm telling you right now, I hate consolation prizes, but if we put up 24 points on UCF, I don't care what the score is. That's a dub. That's a Jameis Winston W right there. 24 points.
Yeah, it's going to be, I think it's going to be fun to watch. Either way, we're going to be here to talk about it here at Locked On UCF and Locked On Oklahoma State. Before we get out of here, you guys do a post-game show over there at Oklahoma State after the game?
I mean, yeah, we haven't done one in a few weeks because there's not been a lot to talk about, unfortunately. But I've been waiting on the win, Mike. As soon as we win a ball game, trust and believe, I'm going to go live at ASAP, and I'm going to be hooting and hollering from the heavens about how excited I am.
Usually we go live right after the game, win or lose, but this week we're going to put our post game up a little early. As I said, either way, Cody and I will be here on our respective channels to talk about it. Basketball season is here, so hopefully he'll come back and we can do some crossovers on basketball. I can't wait for it, my friend.
Hey, Mike, don't forget about wrestling. It's wrestling season, and we're a wrestling school, baby.
It is wrestling season. Look, I think the Bounce House is going to be jumping on Saturday. Can't wait for this one. Cody, I want to thank you for joining me on this crossover episode. Guys, do us a favor. Hit the comments after the video. Let us know what you think. What's your prediction for this game? Will UCF win? Will Oklahoma State pull an upset? Kind of. But we want to hear from you. So again, hit the comments after the video. Let us know what you think about everything we had to talk about today. And make sure you head on over to Locked On Oklahoma State and give them a subscribe. We love our crossover subscriptions here, and we can't wait to come back and talk about it again. This has been another Locked On crossover right here on Locked On UCF and Locked On Oklahoma State.